There's an adage that goes, the bigger the risks, the greater the reward. But there is also an idea that taking risks can backfire and prevent people or companies from achieving their greatest success. For Leo Budin, the CIO of Cascade Financial Services, the risk-reward relationship has always fueled his passions. On this episode of IT Visionaries, Leo discusses how he implements lessons he learned during his days on Wall Street into his current job in the mortgage industry. And he explains the growing divide between programmers and why the industry is evolving right before our eyes. Enjoy this episode. IT Visionaries is created by the team at mission.org and brought to you by the Salesforce Customer 360 platform, the #1 cloud platform for digital transformation of every experience. Build connected experience, empower every employee, and deliver continuous innovation with the customer at the center of everything you do. Learn more at salesforce.com/platform. This podcast is created by the team at mission.org.
Welcome to another episode of IT Visionaries. I'm Ian Faison, host of IT Visionaries. We are joined by special guest Leo. What's going on?
Things are going well. Sunny Phoenix here.
Yeah, indeed. Well, we're going to get into your background in technology and everything IT and technology related about Cascade Financial Services. But first, how did you get into technology in the first place?
Both my parents are engineers, and I was always kind of around people who were thinking about solutions. Back then, it was mechanical or civil engineering kind of stuff. And then I got into originally. I was going to become a electrical engineering person, but then I switched into software in college and kind of pursued my career on Wall Street. So I always was in a mixture of business and technology, sitting on a trading desk at broker dealer or buy side company and helping them to manage risk for their bond portfolios, which involved a lot of programming, a lot of math, and a lot of technology. So I was always kind of in a mixture of solving business problems, but also using programming, C++, or whatever it might be to help to deliver whatever solution that was needed.
And for those of our listeners who don't know, tell us a little bit about Cascade Financial Services and your role as CIO.
Yeah, so Cascade is an interesting business. It was started about 22 years ago by 4 people, local people in Phoenix, and they tried different mortgage types, and eventually they settled onto specific area called manufactured homes, and grew the company, got it to the point where they had over 300 people, and 2 years ago, the founding 4 partners decided to sell the company to this hedge fund called Centerbridge in New York City. And Centerbridge liked the idea to invest in the sector because it tends to be recession-proof, which is kind of what we're trying to learn right now in this crisis. So as of 2 years ago, Centerbridge started putting money in and hiring a lot of folks. My boss joined as well. Todd Kopstein came from Centerbridge to basically become the CEO of the company. And then he hired me to run technology and hired a few more people to augment the management team. And right now we are what I call up and coming mortgage lender in the space. And we are focusing a lot on technology. We delivered digital application to our community. Mortgage products basically get funneled to us by dealers out there in the countries. There are over 1,400 dealers. Some of them are independent. Some of them are part of larger dealer networks. So when the prospective home buyer wants to buy a home, they go to the dealer shop for a model, very similar to a car dealer, but except it's homes on a lot. They find the model they like, they negotiate the price, and then they need financing typically. And so these dealers originate or kind of ask several lenders to provide financing for this transaction. Our goal is to be obviously fastest, cheapest, and best lender out there. So having digital technology and having digital portal, especially now in this sort of COVID scenario when people don't want to spend too much time in the office at the dealer, they can basically finish their transaction at home and apply for a mortgage directly to us from the comfort of their home. So that's a quick kind of review of Cascade. The company today is split between origination business and servicing business. Originally, Cascade serviced only the loans that we originated by ourselves. But as part of that Centerbridge infusion, we started getting into what's called third-party servicing, where we're buying mortgage servicing rights from other companies, and we service them on behalf of them for their clients. So my IT organization is split into two types. I have a team for supporting the servicing organization and the team for supporting the origination department. I also have a team of developers, a pretty large team. My big focus is on developing custom applications. We can't really buy too many products off the shelf because this business is sort of underserved by the general, what I call technology vendor community. So we build a lot of applications in-house. The digital portal was built completely in-house, and we have some other tools that we're working on for the last couple of months. Also, I have obviously help desk and infrastructure team. One of the directions since I joined is to push everything to the cloud. Traditionally, Cascade didn't embrace the cloud. They were just too small and kind of not well versed in those areas. So since I came in, we're making big push to make cloud architecture and cloud services kind of the mainstream of our technology. And then I have another organization is project management. So I have 5 teams basically. Like I said, development, project management, servicing support, origination support, and infrastructure. Total size is about 40 people. So we're heavy in, like I said, we're heavy in development. About 15 people internally of those 40 are developers.
So that's really interesting. And I'd love for you to expand on that a little bit, because we do talk to CIOs who feel the same way that you do, that kind of like the vendor set doesn't necessarily meet their needs 100%, specifically, as they're moving to the cloud and this kind of, for lack of a better term, digital transformation of embracing cloud. I'm curious, like, why do you think that? Why do you think that, like, particularly your area is underserved?
Well, because manufactured home is a very small niche of the total market out there. So if you're a vendor like Ellie Mae, who builds Encompass system, or this new vendor called Blend, who is trying to come up with a digital mortgage application, they mostly focus on biggest parts of the market. So basically what we call stick-built homes, built on-site homes, right? And basically conventional mortgages. So that's the biggest market. That's where everybody, probably 85% of the total origination volume is your traditional loans. So MH is not really in that area. It's a small market, but it's a niche, right? So what ends up happening is if I'm starting a company or existing company, they look at all the different mortgage types, and they basically tend to work on majority of the market, not on the small segment. And so for us, we end up developing or customizing quite heavily a lot of vendor systems in-house.
Yeah, that makes sense. We did a podcast a while back about future cities and looking at manufactured homes and what that looks like and all that. So I do know a little bit about modular, maybe more than the next person, because we interviewed a bunch of folks that were involved in that. And it is funny how, you have these, little pockets or parts of a market where you really do need custom things. I'm curious, how do you build teams around around that? Like, how are you finding the talent to be able to create those things? There's obviously a war for tech talent out there. So how are you, staying competitive?
Yeah, that's really tough, right? So the Phoenix market, I got here about a year and a half ago from New York when I took this job, and Phoenix market is very, very hot even before. Lots of tech companies are moving here from California to escape high taxes over there. A lot of companies are expanding their activities in Phoenix. Phoenix is the fifth largest city in U.S., but people don't think of it as a sort of tech heavy, but it is quite a bit. There is quite many tech companies here, and there are a lot of technologists in the area. So my job was to foster relationships with people kind of on a personal level and through recruiters and others. So I've done a lot of handshaking, a lot of meetings for the last year and a half to kind of get out there and to talk to people, interview people. We went to local colleges, so we had to develop a way to reach out to folks to say, look, come to Cascade. We're going to build this new technology. Everything pretty much is brand new. There's no maintenance. People typically don't like to maintain old systems. So we offer them great projects. We offer them small team environment and agile development. So there's a lot of benefits, I feel, that we offer for programmers and technical people when they join. So, but it does take time, and it involves a lot of evenings and a lot of weekends to get out there and to create that culture and explain that culture at Cascade to the folks in the area. And also, we're flexible, so we have a few people outside of Phoenix on my team. So even before this whole COVID situation, we already had pretty much work from home and kind of distributed workforce. So we have people in Florida, we have people in Atlanta, California. So depending on the need, we hired people outside of Phoenix if we couldn't find certain skills in Phoenix, right? So yeah, it took quite some time.
Yeah, that's so fascinating, and that's really it's such a great insight into like kind of tech talent these days, where you're exactly right that if you offer them some of those really important perks, working on cool projects, not having to just maintain a bunch of legacy stuff, being agile, and then the work remote or work from home or some blend of remote work, you can find some really good talent that you might not have. Maybe a handful of years ago, even at the same company, you wouldn't have been able to land.
Yeah, exactly. So most people, they want to do good work. They want to be part of winning team, and so that's the challenge for managers like myself is to offer that type of environment, create that environment, and offer it and explain it so that they don't feel like I'm kind of just selling and it's not really true. So, I welcome them to come and talk to anyone on my team. And we do have pretty serious interviews with programming tests and with all kinds of puzzles and questions. And we do try to make sure we hire super technical people. And also we want to always look for what I call nice people. We don't want to have the other types on my team. So
I'm curious, what about like back in when you were talking to your leadership team originally and saying like, hey, we need to invest heavily in technology. And you said there might have been a little pushback, or maybe it just wasn't a focus. I'm curious, what was that conversation like? And like, what is it now that you have that stuff in place?
Yeah, I never really had any super tough budget meetings with the management. So like I said, there are two kind of cascades. One prior to Centerbridge acquisition and one post Centerbridge acquisition. So probably before I joined, before Centerbridge bought the company, there was probably lack of funding for technology, but I can't really speak too much of that. But since I got here, pretty much it's kind of funny. I have to kind of fight for lower spending, if you will, because I don't want to have to do 20 projects all at once. So it's kind of interesting dynamics. The business has so many ideas and so many interesting things they want me to work on. And I'm the one who's trying to tell them, look, let's try to sequence things and let's not build 20 systems in parallel. Let's do maybe 10, and then we can do the other 10 after we finish the first 10. So yeah, it's a unusual dynamics where the head of IT is trying to build things in sequence, not in parallel.
Yeah, and I want to steer into that a little bit. What are the requirements that you get from the business? Like, as someone who is ahead of the curve on a lot of this, a lot of the trends, and making sure that you have a solid technical footprint and are creating products. Do the business leaders now come to you with everything, or do they want to get a bunch of out of the box stuff? Like, I'd be curious, like, because you have such a strong IT organization, what is the response from your peers, from the business leaders?
Yeah, so that's an interesting dynamic. So most of our people on our executive committee, I'm the only official technical guy, but they all know quite a bit about technology. So they all, dabbled enough in it to know to be dangerous. Let's put it this way. So typically what we get is a lot of interesting ideas. My list of ideas there's probably 40, 50 things at all times on that list. And then we have to sit there and prioritize them. What are we doing, and when are we doing this one, right? So I get put into a lot of interesting meetings. So for example, COVID comes in. So, I remember, March 5th, I'm talking to my boss and he's like, we got to move everybody home. Start now. And I'm like, are you really sure? So, we discussed it literally for an hour. And then next day I made a plan, and within 2-3 weeks, we literally sent entire company home one by one or department by department. But in 2-3 weeks, the office was largely empty. And then as of now, it's pretty much maybe one person comes there, but out of 300 people, nobody's in the office. So another idea, like I said, somebody said, let's build digital portals. So we discussed it, and we made a design and made a kind of prototype, and then we released it to a few dealers, tried it. And I like the idea of iterative sort of style. So it kind of fits Cascade mode, because we don't know exactly what the final version of this dealer portal might be like. So we kind of tried with a few dealers. Then if they like it, great, we go to a few more. And then we get feedback and we iterate, and it fits this agile style quite well. So we're not even looking for what I call the final spec on the product, because we know that there's a lot of things that we don't really know still, even though some of these executives have been in the business for over 20 years, but it's a new idea, and technology is not really always welcomed in the mortgage market, and especially in the manufactured home part of the mortgage market. So it's an interesting thing to introduce out there. And so we iterate. So we probably did, 20, 30 releases before we settled into what we have today. So it's a interesting, like I said, it's an interesting dynamics. Many executives, they know kind of what they want, and they know a lot about technology. And yeah, they may not be able to write the code, but they know kind of enough to kind of spell it out for us.
I love that list of 40 to 50. I feel like every CIO has that list of what's the dream to have, the need, the want, and all that. How do you kind of triage some of those things? What's the line of hey, this is going to be a 2021 priority, or this is something that we need to do now?
Yeah, I mean, some things I just cannot refuse, if you will. There's some emergency projects that we basically have to do. So those go first, regardless of what I think. And then the others, we have to do some kind of arm twisting and a lot of discussions to figure out, do we really want to do this one now or wait? So we also look at kind of cost benefit analysis. We're doing financial analysis. If we spend, let's say, $500,000 in software development costs to build this, what kind of revenue for us would it produce, right? So we have a lot of different ways we can address that 40 item list. But another thing to keep in mind is, like any CIO, I have a list of what I call technical debt that I inherited, or some of it already we created ourselves since I've been here. So that's another list that I have to manage actively to eliminate or reduce technical debt, so that I'm not sitting here 2 years from now and I have a lot of legacy systems, old systems, and nobody wants to work for me because they don't like to work on that kind of stuff, right? So I also try to attack the technical debt side of things. So these are projects that really nobody in the business side really appreciates or knows quite well, but I'm trying to get it down to less volume, if you will, on my own. Obviously, some of the bigger projects we have to inform the business. So, for example, I'm converting the whole company from SQL Server into Postgres, and that's a big effort. But I feel like technology-wise, that's going to set us up to be lower cost manufacturer, if you will, of IT. So there are two lists, basically. One list is driven by the business. Another list is driven by me internally to collect those technical items and technical debt items and make sure we prune them out pretty quickly.
Any technologies that you've been implementing, whether, something like AI or blockchain or, APIs or just something that you've either put into that list or have already implemented that has been working really well for the team?
Yeah, good question. So there were many kind of different projects, all focused on the need for what I call service-oriented architecture. And so we looked at a bunch of vendors and we looked at a bunch of different technologies, and we ended up buying this product made by MuleSoft Corporation. And basically they give us kind of one tool that lets us integrate all these disparate systems, and with their technology we can implement connectivity and we can implement messaging between all these different events, and we can implement kind of orchestration of various separate tasks. So I don't have to have developers building what I call monolithic systems, and then it's hard to maintain them. So MuleSoft is an interesting addition to our list of products. So basically, pretty much everything that we're building new, whether it's ETL or now we also bought Salesforce, we're integrating with Salesforce. So all these processes are being built kind of within MuleSoft architecture. So that's one thing that kind of I introduced to the company since I showed up. Another thing we're looking at is so in the mortgage space, when we try to originate new loan, how do we know whether we want to take that risk or not? So a borrower comes in, one borrower has 750 FICO, another borrower has 650 FICO. One borrower wants, to put down 20%, another borrower wants to put down 5%. First of all, do we want to lend them at all? And if we do want to lend them, how much do we charge, right? So we need to determine that, and we need to determine that pretty quickly. So what we're working on now is kind of our what's called a pricing model. So that pricing model needs to be able to very quickly, because it's going to be plugged into the digital platform. So when the borrower is applying, they're online, they're waiting on the screen. So we can't take 3 hours to price this loan and figure out whether we want to originate it or not. We need to give them an answer within 5-10 seconds. So to do this, we need to be able to run a bunch of Monte Carlo simulations on this loan to figure out when will it default, if it defaults at all, or when will it pay on time. And based on those scenarios, we can then figure out the rate we can charge to the borrower. So obviously, lower tier credit borrowers will default more, and our model will predict that. And higher tier borrowers will never default. So that's where higher tier borrowers will get lower rate, and lower tier borrowers will get higher rate, or may not get approval for the loan at all if they're not meeting our credit standards. So to support that effort, we need to implement pretty much very, very high CPU environment, which can scale and which can run many of these applications concurrently and be able to produce an answer quickly. So what tends to happen in these solutions is I need to provision hundreds of machines on the cloud so that I can run Monte Carlo simulations on the fly and compute these answers that flow into the lending application. As you can see, there's a lot of technology on that side, kind of unrelated to the pure IT technology. This is more like financial computation problem where you're running Monte Carlo simulations and you're pricing each one of them, and you're taking an average to basically compute an answer. In my space, I have to deal with pure technology, pure or more financial kind of applications and databases, and you name it. We get to work on those very many different projects.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. And it's so interesting how nuanced your market is too. With a market that has been around for so long. I love that the company tagline about making the American dream happen, and just how fundamentally it's still such a difficult process. And obviously, it should be difficult, that in the sense that there's so much risk involved, and it's the biggest financial decision and most people are going to make in their entire life. But the ways that technology can help that process happen, in an industry that hasn't fundamentally changed that much in 100 years, and to see those kind of those advancements is really cool.
Yeah. I really I follow this fellow named Michael Lewis. He wrote many books.
Yeah.
About Wall Street, and his first book was, of course, Liar's Poker. One of his non-Wall Street related books, but it's connected, is called Moneyball. It's basically about baseball. The idea is that they introduced Wall Street approach to digitize baseball activities. So they knew statistics on every player, they knew statistics on every pitcher, every hitter, and they knew technologically they had databases of exactly where how he hit the ball and where he struck out and how he struck out. They knew everything about everybody, and they were able to essentially build a pricing model that essentially let them build a team for 10th of the budget, and they competed at the top level. So traditionally, Oakland A's, they were not ever a contender for anything, but once they introduced that technology into the corporate culture, they were able to essentially get rid of expensive players, buy cheaper players, and with a much smaller budget, be able to compete against the likes of Yankees. And even though they still didn't win the World Series, they came close for like a set 10th of a budget. So this is similar to us. I think that we are in a process of like digitizing this market, and hopefully we can win the game, if you will, and we can provide better service, cheaper service, and faster service with less money. Because even though computer programmers are more expensive, but when you automate a problem and you can originate a bunch of mortgages, that cost of development gets spread over many, many loans, so that you can actually produce loans cheaper because you don't have to hire people to originate them manually. That's kind of the approach that I think we're taking. In this particular book, Michael Lewis tries to explain how people just couldn't believe this kid from Princeton University was able to come into a completely foreign organization and be able to tell them, here, you got to fire these guys, you got to hire these guys. So there's a couple of interesting scenes in the movie, but it kind of applies to us as well, because we have to introduce technology to areas of the industry that are not comfortable with that.
Yeah, it's a great analogy, and it's my Oakland A's. So I've been an Oakland A's fan since since I was 3 years old when we won the World Series. So yeah, I mean it's a great analogy though for IT and for technology, because so many areas were resistant to change. I think, it's funny, we were talking to the CIO at Juniper Networks, and Bob was saying how, one of the tough parts for hiring for him was that he only wanted the people who, the mindset of the old IT person who was focused on maintaining was not what he needed anymore, because they were going 100% cloud native. So he was like, we needed a new mindset. And even though it was someone who'd, been in IT for 15 years, that was a great IT person, that, she wouldn't be the right fit for this new, IT team or a new technology team, and that was just a fundamental difference. So it's a great analogy with the Moneyball stuff of like, even the people around you have to change their mindset and their thinking to what's now possible.
I'm not so young anymore, and I watch these kids, how they develop code and how they approach problems. So the best of them, they just learn on the fly. They, like in my days, we have to get a book, we have to read it cover to cover, and then we can start using those lessons that we learned from the book in real world. Today, they just go to Stack Overflow, or they go to some of these other websites. They literally Google or search for some of these problems, and they come up with solutions almost instantaneously. So it's very much different. It's what I call fearless programming. They have no fear. So I think that's what your fellow is talking about. Is the older style programmers, unfortunately, they have a lot of fear built into their kind of behavior, and they don't fit modern world organizations anymore, because in today's world, because of the agile, because of some of the ways we're doing things, it's not always the best to research kind of for a long time the perfect solution. It's better to deliver something quick and dirty versus super perfect but take much longer time, because the once you deliver what I call a prototype and you deliver it quicker, the business may change the question, because they'll look at the prototype and they'll say, that's not really what I wanted. I really want this. So you got to be able to iterate very quickly and keep up with their kind of thought process. So that in my early days, we wanted a spec, we wanted it to be perfect, and then we would design it and implement it, and that process would take 6 months. 6 months here, it would never work. We want 6 days, right? So by hiring these what I call fearless younger programmers, and they are typically younger, we can kind of achieve that, because they literally can get something up and running in short time. And yeah, it may not be perfect, but we will iterate to make it perfect. That's kind of the style.
Specifically with regards to kind of dealing with this crisis, I'm curious, what are some of the things that you're doing as a leader, both for your team and then as a company, to to deal with these kind of unprecedented times?
Yeah, it's very interesting development. I don't think anybody here or elsewhere, nobody really thought about pandemic events like that. Typical DR scenario included, okay, the building catches fire or flooded, so you have to evacuate the building. And then, 2-3 weeks later, you work from another location, right? So here we are, nothing's really broken physically. Every data center works, all the buildings are fine, but we can't come in to actually sit in our seats. So like I mentioned earlier, we stood up a bunch of terminal servers, and we are able to put all of our employees out of harm's way. So my job is now to call them and to have Zoom meetings with them, and to have these virtual happy hours, or to do whatever social interaction we need to do in order to make everybody feel like still connected and still engaged. And it's not just a bunch of meetings all day long. So yeah, we cannot meet in person, but we're trying to kind of oversteer, if you will, on the social component so that people all feel they're still connected. So yeah, so we have, like I said, I make extra efforts to call pretty much everybody in my organization every day or two. I call people just to chat, just to see what they're doing. And then we have more like structured events where we have sort of like a lunch and learn on Friday, and then we have a happy hour all virtually, but we do it, and we try to get everybody on Zoom with full video so people can see each other. So it's not just a kind of dry session with no way to see the screen, right?
Is there anything that you see out in the next 5 and 10 years that's really going to change buying a home or technology or otherwise that could really shape kind of a new era of how that's done?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So I'm not sure about the regular housing market, what we call stick-built homes, but in MH space, I think a lot more will be shifted to online. There will be applications built, like sort of like ours, and other vendors will definitely embrace those because it's going to be either adopt or go out of business type thing, right? So I can imagine a scenario where a borrower can, basically sit at home, log into some dealer's website, look at all their models, negotiate the price online, and then right from there be redirected to apply for a mortgage to several companies and then pick a mortgage. So I can imagine where they don't even have to leave the home to finish their transactions. So there's all these e-signature services, e-notary services that we have to now use much more because of this COVID situation. But once hopefully COVID situation is resolved, all this technology will stay, because now that people are forced to use it, they're going to have to use it going forward because they already had to do it, right? So I think it's going to be what I call the Amazon model. So you can buy pretty much anything you want nowadays on Amazon. I think buying MH home will be kind of similar to that experience where they have that one click. You don't even have to put a credit card. You just buy it, and they use your credit card stored in your account to buy your whatever it is you're buying and ship it to you. So that's the experience. I think the less time it takes, the more efficient everybody wants it to be, and everybody likes that model, especially the younger crowd. They're all walking around with cell phones, and they don't want to be bothered with printing an application and filling it out, doing all that manual stuff. So yeah, pretty much we all should learn from Amazon and follow their lead on that front, because they spend a lot of time and money sort of perfecting and making their platform what it is today. And I think it's just a matter of time before every other industry becomes more and more like Amazon.
Okay, let's get into our lightning round questions. These questions are fast and easy. Just like the Salesforce Customer 360 platform, the #1 cloud platform for digital transformation of every experience, you can go to salesforce.com/platform to learn more. We love Salesforce. They've been with us from the very beginning in the Salesforce Customer 360 platform, salesforce.com/platform to learn more. Lightning round questions. Leo, are you ready?
Ready.
A favorite book or podcast or TV show that you've been particularly enjoying recently?
My wife and I watched this show called Hells on Wheels. So that's an interesting kind of mixture of railroad, building railroad across the country with a bunch of different personal stories weaved in between. So that was kind of interesting. About 20% historical and 80% probably fiction. As far as books, I like anything with history. I like all kinds of mafia books. So that's my big interest.
Have there been any any quarantine specific or shelter in place specific hobbies that you've picked up recently?
Probably, if anything, I probably listen more to music. I'm a big Grateful Dead fan, so I probably have that going much more than when I was before.
What about a hidden talent or passion?
I like yoga. I like karate. So those are my two.
Final question. What is your best advice for a first-time CIO?
Measure it 14 times before you cut.
I love that. That's great. Sounds like you're saying that from personal experience.
Yeah.
Awesome. Leo, that's it. That's all we got for today. Thanks so much for joining. We appreciate it.
Great. Thanks for your time.
IT Visionaries is created by the team at mission.org and brought to you by the Salesforce Customer 360 platform, the #1 cloud platform for digital transformation of every experience. Build connected experience, empower every employee, and deliver continuous innovation with the customer at the center of everything you do. Learn more at salesforce.com/platform.